Okay. We will open up the Board Policy Committee for June 6th, 2025 at 9:04 a.m. Roll call, Mr. Fritz, Mrs. Bork, Mrs. Donahoe, Mr. Stansford,
Here.
And me. Doug is sitting in because I am going to miss this month's board meeting. And since this month's board meeting will be the first reading, wanted to make sure he was familiar. And if he has any questions, we can get those answered before the meeting. So you've all received what is Press Plus issue number 118. And we're going to go over these. The great part is really all of them follow two basic things. Number one is the changes in Title IX. And if you remember, when we just approved this spring, all of the Title IX regulations under the Biden administration, and we had already had the election, I said, can you get that? I'm sorry. That at some point we had heard they were all going to swing back to the Trump administration. So they have appealed the Title IX regulations back to the 2020 regulations. 2020 regulations when President Trump was first in office. And secondly, effective July 1st of 2025 is something called the Ensuring Success in School Act, or the acronym ESS. And what ESS does is it provides protections for students who are already parents, could be expectant parents, or have been victims of domestic or sexual violence. There are certain protections and supports offered to them. So one of the things is we will have a designated person in each building as the ESS coordinator. Right now, we're most likely thinking it will be our social workers and our counselors, since they are usually dealing with those types of issues with students. The training for our Title IX and our non-discrimination coordinator, which is Doug Stansford, is not out yet. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, it has it here with the Title IX. You know, I have everything. It doesn't let choose the Title I.
Yes, it will be him. Yep.
It's going to be me.
Yeah.
It used to say.
And then we also have non-discrimination coordinators, and we have Mark Campbell or complaint managers, thank you, or Crystal Thorpe, because if someone is more comfortable going to a woman or someone might feel more comfortable going to a man, we have each of those. So what you're going to hear me say a lot is the changes are due to Title IX regulations or due to the new ESS law as we go through these. Any other questions before we start? Okay, so the first one was 2:260, the uniform grievance procedure. Again, the changes are 2024 Title IX regulations were struck down and the 2020 regulations were reinstated. Also under this is the effective on July 1st, 2025, Ensuring Success in School Act, or what I will start referring to as ESS. That takes effect on July 1st, as I said, and it provides protections for students who are parents, expectant parents, or victims of domestic and sexual violence. And feel free as we go through to stop me at any time if you have a question. They don't go like mine starts at 13. So I just go in order, the number order. 13 should be 2:260. Yeah, I'm sorry she didn't do it in the order. We'll make sure that's done for next time. Okay, the next one is 2:265, which is the Title IX grievance procedure. As I said, this was rewritten for the same reasons as the uniform grievance procedure, and that is the change in back to 2020 regulations for Title IX and the new ESS Act, which takes place on July 1st. Next is 4:15, identity protection. This now covers Social Security numbers to make sure that those are protected. The great news is there's only one person, or two, I'm sorry, but really Michelle Dewey is the one who keeps those. We make sure that we have cybersecurity in place to make sure that those are not leaked. The identity protection now also includes what they consider protected, personally identifiable information or personally identifiable information. In the policy, you see it as PII or protected PII. And these are also including the cybersecurity measures that districts are supposed to take care of. You don't want to let anything out that by looking at the information would be able to identify an employee, including things such as, like we said, Social Security numbers and birth dates. And Mr. Fritz, mine are all done. Why don't you take mine instead of having to struggle with? You got it? Okay. Okay.
I
Yeah.
still don't have my notes.
Yeah.
Oh, can you use one of these?
Yeah. Okay. Moving on now to 4:80, which is page number 22. Okay. This one is accounting and audits. The major change in here is letting us know that any capital asset, which used to be $5,000, is now increased to $10,000. And those are reporting requirements that we go through when we have our audit every late summer, early fall. Next up is 5:10, equal employment opportunity and minority recruitment, page 25. This has updates. The updates that are there, again, are related to the rollback of the Title IX requirements. 5:, oops, I think I put two together. I did. 5:20, workplace harassment prohibited, page 29. This again was updated to comply with Title IX grievance procedure. Doug is both Title IX and non-discrimination for the district. Yeah. It asks for it on the Title IX one. Yes. Yep. On the back, I think it's on page 2 there. So we're good there. Next is 5:60, expenses, page 34. This one happened to be a 5-year review. If you remember, some of them are new policies and then they pick a few each year. So we go through every 5 years. We've looked at all of the board policy. And this is nothing new added other than updates to the references and the legal notes. Reading through those are all the policies that we follow in the district. Next up is 5:100, the staff development program. This added ESS, the ensuring success in school. It talks about the training for the resource person that will be identified in each building. And Sarah, that might have been before you got here. Right now, we're looking most likely at our social workers and our counselors in each buildings to do this, since this is similar to what they do now. But I want to go over this with the administrators at our upcoming meeting just to make sure that's the best person throughout the district. There is also now a required training in trauma responsive learning environments that must occur. So we have an upcoming meeting with Public School Works. We'll be inquiring with them to see if that's something they offer, or if it will be something that Doug will need to find and prepare for this next year. I don't. Next is 6150 home and hospital instruction. And this has been updated to include the wording for the ESS law, to make sure that if students are required to be home due to any of those reasons, or in the hospital, that we know that we must provide them the education during that time. Next up is 6235, page 45, which is access to electronic networks. This is the beginning of what I anticipate is going to be a huge topic of discussion this next year. It now has artificial intelligence, AI, talks about AI-enabled tools that are used throughout the school day, and addressing the appropriate use of social media. So there, if you take a look at that, one of the things that it talks about in regards to AI is we will, over this next year, be developing an AI plan district-wide, and a reasonable use guideline of AI for not only students, but also for staff. Make sure that our AI-enabled tools that we're using in the classroom comply with state and federal law. Ensure that our staff receive training and our students receive instruction on AI, and that we review the district's AI plan and responsible use guidelines annually as needed. I anticipate most likely we'll pull a group together of, I'd love a student representative on there or two, absolutely, with staff who want, and then of course our technology department.
Administrators are going in the morning, pretty much all the administrators, and I think the team's going to be in there too. For teachers, last I looked, there was 11 or 12. So
will they cover some of this, or will it just be more like what
are
the tools to use?
Yeah, good tools to use.
We're all kind of waiting for the guidance. Like,
And that's
what did
anybody already got something?
But in Sondergaard is going to be doing the training, and I'll ask them, when we get the guidelines.
Yeah.
We get him.
It's exciting, but it's also very scary.
It is, and you're exactly right. Like we said, we certainly want to expose our children to this. It's a reality, and they need to be able to know how to use it and to understand when is it appropriate and when is it not.
Yeah,
That's, I mean, we literally had students that had basically said, why do we need to learn this? Because we could just use AI.
Mhm.
And that was in the math classes, and it was like,
Yeah, why do we even need to learn how to read? Because it'll read to us and what we need to write and everything. It's pretty crazy.
and that was what the department explained to them, that AI is not even math generated, it's all language generated. You have to understand that it will not.
Mm.
We've noticed certain things
Mhm.
in speeches and different things
Yeah.
where they haven't tweaked anything. You can almost hear the AI come through sometimes, especially if you know the person giving the speech. And the other thing, what did we notice about that? We had an application, you know, where there are certain application questions, and we knew immediately it was AI generated.
I have it's on the computer. You cannot, you know, it doesn't know how the algorithms already have to exist.
Mhm.
It cannot come up with it on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Because in the language thing, they have already begun the algorithm to pull in human emotion. Yes. Like you said, yet. Yes. I know even our Illinois Association of the IASB for the school board and superintendents and that in the fall. I'm on their planning committee now, and AI is what we're bringing to them. So the board is up to date on what this means and its impact. Yeah. It's a great tool, like you said, but remembering it's just a tool. Yeah. Yep. 710, equal educational opportunities. This is one of those that the updates related to this include the Title IX changes that have occurred and the inclusion of the ESS law wording. Continuing on to 720, harassment of students prohibited, page 50. This includes the information on the Title IX changes, since Title IX covers harassment of students or staff. 760 is on residents. This reflects the new ESS law. It allows districts, but does not require intra-district transfer of students who qualify under ESS or when it's ordered by the courts. So if I have a student perhaps who is in Sterling who would like to come to Dixon, this is why we're going to have not only the administration skilled in understanding this and knowing the parameters of the ESS law. It could also mean that at that point we can allow that student to come to Dixon if there are reasons that warrant it or it's court ordered. Next is 770, attendance and truancy. This includes the ESS language as a valid cause for student absences. Which of course, if they've just had a baby or they're expecting a baby, or we have issues of needs of counseling, if they've had domestic or sexual violence, we want to make sure that they get the supports and services that they need. And if it's during the school day, we can work with that on attendance. Next up is 7180, page 60. This is the prevention of a response to bullying, intimidation, and harassment. And this contains, again, the updates to Title IX. Next is 7185, teen dating violence prohibited. This as well contains the updates to the Title IX grievance procedure. That was page 66.
It's not just because it's building wide, you're gonna have bullying issues that are gonna go to the principals.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you are a parent, if you are a staff member, if you are another student, then they know who within the building. Usually at that point, there is a call to both Doug and I if anything like that is seen or reported. Next up is 7190, student behavior, which this is what governs literally our student behavior, starting on page 68. So they have added a couple new things on this one. First of all, they have included a definition for what sexting is. So to know what it is and what it isn't. It also includes now criminalizing the non-consensual dissemination of sexually explicit depictions, which you found that right next to that was sexting. So if they send it digitally. Also is the definition of corporal punishment, which by the way is prohibited, but they have defined what constitutes corporal punishment. Remember, you're on tape. And they added to prohibited student conduct electronic pages. So they must be making a comeback from the 1990s.
Martin, would you know what these, where it says weekends, programs, is that what the law passed?
That is
Where's
It's
this?
very
right
interesting.
here. When and where they apply. You know, we always have said, or what I have conveyed and how we have reacted is literally door to door. This is what I tell parents, especially, you know, if they're riding our transportation. Mhm. Yeah,
I think you could probably see the high school from the top of the Dixon National Bank building, Dave.
right. But like they said, if they're doing something within sight, depending on where that may be, it can also be considered where we can enact our board policy and our rules.
I had an incident where two brothers got in a fight on the school bus stop, and I had to deal with that. And Dad was like, "Well, I can just deal with it." And like, I'm required to deal with it.
Yeah, it seems like every year we have one of those with bus stops that kind of, you know, rear up on, you know, can you help us? Of course, we can help you. That's our area. And while we don't have people at every bus stop, we're lucky we have connections, great connections with neighbors, Dixon Police. But you're right. What does that mean? And where is that from? Where can you say?
Follow them, yeah, there's interaction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good point.
It's harder for us, and I think don't realize that. They think,
Oh, and kids don't realize.
but yeah, you're right.
I'm stepped off of school grounds.
You want to
Yeah.
do whatever they want. Like, oh no, we're not out the door yet.
Yeah. Point them to our website.
Yeah.
7200 under suspension procedures. Again, this reflects the ESS changes. It allows a student who qualifies under those 3 areas of ESS that in a suspension meeting or an expulsion hearing, to make sure they understand they can disclose any factor that needs to be considered, and they can appear with a representative or a support person at either one of these. And this is one thing, I think it probably sometimes more with older children, they'll let them know, you know, they'll say, do you want to call a parent? But a lot of times, as we have instructed, especially our elementary, get those parents right on the phone while you're talking to the kiddo, because there's a representative then.
This is another one that bothers me. Do they have a definition of support person?
No. Basically, under this and what I've read, can be anyone they feel in support. Now, I'd be hoping that those people we identify in our buildings would be someone they would become comfortable with, But at the end of the day, they do not define support person as of yet. Yeah. Next up is 7-10 on page 79. This is expulsion procedures. It is the exact same language as the suspension procedures. It reflects the ESS changes, says they can have, it allows them to provide any factor they want considered in an expulsion hearing, and they can appear with a representative or a support person.
Support person might disrupt.
Yes. The thing that we have guarded is if it is disruptive, we have the ability to remove that person. We could stop anything. I believe we do, as long as we allow that individual to bring in someone else. I can certainly check that out, but I know, hopefully it'll never happen, but if it does, just like anything, you attempt to diffuse the situation and see what we can do, because at the end of the day, we have a job to do and hopefully get it done. Could be.
Anybody, it sounds to me like it's anybody that they claim to be their support person. And some of them could be pretty off the wall.
We talking about like the
Yep.
Can the support person be the parent? It says inform the student and parent guardian that a support person of their choice.
Mhm. Most, yes,
They have a support person in addition to their parent.
They could.
they could.
Yes.
And with the ESS law and identifying one person in each building to kind of make the contact with, to let them know what the law states and what services and supports we can provide to them, or hook them up with services and supports within our community. Like I said, hopefully we're making those connections and that could be someone, but the fact of the matter is, quite frankly, it could be anyone.
I mean, if you're coming in your village or anything, you basic your rules are you need to.
Have decorum and yeah.
Yeah. So if you're village or
I'm hoping you've seen worse in the courts than we see in my office.
I'm not sure about that.
Sometimes. Mhm. And we have always a safeguard with our police department, who, if we have concerns, are always there with us if we need them.
I don't think I'm so much worried about our physical safety. It's just, how
Mhm.
some of these hearings can go.
We need to update our canned letters and limit with the support person.
Yes. Yep.
And we could put those parameters in there, like this is how you'll behave if you're a support person.
Usually, though, we provide these right with the letters I send of here's the hearing and here's the date and time. But you're right, I'm going to make a note.
Especially,
Mhm. I will work with Rachel Little to update limit language. Next is 7-250. Speaking of support persons, student
Go
support.
back a minute.
I can.
80. At the very top, you see C. It appears to me that they leave out support person in that paragraph. I was wondering if that was intentional.
It says if the expulsion hearing involves allegations of sexual violence by the student, Neither the student nor the student's representative shall directly question nor have direct contact with the alleged victim. The student or the student's representative may, at the discretion of the board or its hearing officer, suggest questions be posed by the board or its hearing officer. I'm wondering if student's representative includes that.
One of the same thing.
Parent,
Surprised it wasn't.
yeah, Hmm?
Us.
yes. Yeah, it's directly from the law, so I'm assuming they're lumping them all under that. Moving on then to 7250, Student Support Services, starting on page 82. It has added, as you can see, the ESS language, and it also requires us, for students who are age 12 and older, to be notified annually of counseling availability without parent consent. So that is something that I will be working with Matt and Jared on, and our counselors and our social workers at those grade levels, to let them know that. Most likely, not only will we put it in the student handbook, but we're gonna discuss what's the best way to communicate that. Yep. They've always been able to meet with a student for a minimum number of times before parents are notified, but this doesn't talk anymore about the parent notification. So I'm going to be interested to talk to our social workers and our counselors to find out what guidance they've been given as well. Depends on what they're asking. If they're just asking questions on classes and different requirements or different things, not required. If they're sitting down in an actual kind of counseling / social work session, yes, if they're under the age of 18. After 18, well, and even I can say 18.
Scheduled.
Mm-hmm. And then even at 18, they get when they turn 18, they get the card that says, do you want to declare yourself as an independent student, where we don't notify parents anymore, or do you waive that right? So if they do sign it, we cannot notify them once they're 18. After that, then if they refuse that or waived it, then we could tell them still. I think I remember having that same conversation with my mother. So.
I didn't have to refuse that.
Next up is 7255, students who are parents, expectant parents, or victims of domestic or sexual violence. This is actually the ESS law. So they've got it now in policy, everything we've been referring to. And if you look at number 2 there, that's what I was talking about. It ensures at least one staff member in each school building designated as a resource person, and receives training in accordance with it. So I'll be talking with our principals coming up. Like I said, our initial thoughts were social workers and counselors, since that's usually what they are doing anyway in assisting our kids. So next up is 7270, administering medication or medicines to students, on page 84. This is changed because students now who have been diagnosed as a diabetic or with epilepsy or seizure disorders, they are now allowed to carry their medicines with them. So it isn't, it needs to be something that we receive confirmation, obviously, from a licensed physician. Also added to this is that a licensed social worker can possess and administer an opioid antagonist medicine if needed. As of late, it was our administrative team and our nursing team that were trained. So we will make sure that our social workers are also trained. Next up is 7310. Restrictions on publications, elementary schools. Opioid antagonist, yes. About a year ago, we've always had them on site because at the middle school and the high school, our SROs are always carrying them. We had them, we had a few extra in all of our nurses' office throughout the district. And now, and we get them usually from our health department. We keep several of them on in the main office, in our nurse's office, and usually with our SROs. And so we created a policy to say we'd keep extra ones on hand. 7310, restrictions on publications. This one is specifically for elementary school. It addresses the limits of students' free speech while on campus and addresses the issue of discipline for off-campus conduct. And I'm sure social media has driven a lot of this, is what I can say on that. So it's one of those things, if you look down to number 3, it talks about socially inappropriate or inappropriate due to the maturity level of the students, not limited to material that's obscene, pornographic, or pervasively lewd and vulgar, contains indecent and vulgar language, or sexting, and we talked about that defined in the previous policy to make sure that we have that in our student handbook. So
For this one, do they have a definition of school authorities? Or they use it that way? I hadn't noticed that in most of the policies.
I believe school authorities are anyone who would hold an administrative license, but they have not defined for us. That's what we just attributed to. Seven 315, page 90. This is the exact same thing, but they have made it for high school. And if you look through it again, it talks about making sure that's in student handbooks. And they also talked about anything like a number 6 on the last page there, any that they included the word encourages or incites students to violate any board policies. Finally, 7340, student records. They added the ESS law into this since it's student record. The information regarding ESS law is kept in the student's temporary file. It restricts the circumstances when schools can disclose if a parent is, if they are a parent, current parent, an expecting parent, or a victim of domestic and sexual violence. And temporary records need to include this information. And if you remember, temporary records are ones that should be reviewed and things can be removed after every child moves a building. So at the end of first grade, third grade, fifth grade, eighth grade. Not permanent files, the temporary ones, or sometimes what we call the teacher files. Any questions on this? As a reminder, at the June 25th meeting will be the first meeting or first reading of this. August 20th is our next meeting because we don't have one in July. So the second reading will take place on August 20th, and that will be the final adoption. So if there's any questions in between there, please make sure to let us know so we can get answers back to you or your associations.
It's faith. Is there anything in here about faith's law? I don't, like the law that if a teacher is being accused of doing something to a child or student. Is there anything in there, or is just not that appropriate document?
Faith's Law, I believe, was in our last or the one before that. We had all the Faith's Law editions. Yeah.
Something.
Yeah, I saw Aaron's.
Yeah. One of the things you can do is if you go to our webpage and you click on district, and then you scroll down, it'll bring a big drop-down list. Click on Board of Education. Underneath all of the board members' names, you will see a blue link for the board policy manual. Now, these won't be in there yet because they're not updated till they're adopted. But every time we have an adoption like this, after the August meeting, we upload it, they send us the new batch, and then we upload everything to that link. This is really handy. I use this, I can't tell you how many times in a day when I'm wondering stuff or thinking about how I have to structure something. If you go in and type in Faith's Law in that search box, it'll tag any board policy. AP stands for Administrative Procedure. Those are not required to be adopted. Those give us ideas if we need to know how to word it in a handbook or I need to create a letter to go home.
Board of Education policy.
Yep. And then if you do that, and so just so you know, the policies come up by the numbers like you see here. AP or administrative procedures. Those are things for your administrative team to look at to say, let's not reinvent the wheel. They give us, if you do these things, this is what's required by law. And you'll see some E, those are exhibits that they have. So that is the handiest thing. And hopefully somebody watches this recording of this. And it's the best thing where you can go to refer. If you're wondering about something, type in a word and it can usually find it, and anything that references it pulls all those policies forward. Isn't that great? That's part of you were asking earlier about Press Plus. That's one of the advantages of being a member of that. Yeah. Well, in our policy manual, literally with all, everything that comes up was getting to be this big. And yes, you can look through the index and then you can try and I look at the footnotes a lot because if it references any other policies, you're going to want to quickly go look at those to see if there's something different. So it's they also make something called the school code. I have a school code book. It's like the most frequently asked questions of the last year. Yeah, and we can quick go look at that. And if it doesn't have it, it'll usually have, C board policy 2:50. So very helpful because these are the things that we, run the district by. We just yesterday had our 4-year annual audit from the ROE, and board policy is what we have to prove we have. And then for some of them, prove the documents for it. And we went through with flying colors yesterday. It is. Yeah.
Document, I found like the board policy committee where it has the meetings agendas or minutes agendas on meetings.
Okay.
Am I too far?
If you don't mind, we'll close the meeting
Yeah.
and I will work with you on that. If there's no other questions, then It is currently 9:49 a.m. And do I have a motion to adjourn? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you for taking time out of your summer to come in for this time and to read all of them. Stop recording.